Going on, everybody? How we doing? Off the chat. All right. There's something to stream than nothing. It means we got a little winter activity at least in New England. Try to cash in on another day, another stream. Man. Another day, another stream. Back to back. Hey, listen. Back to back nights on streams usually means there's something coming. I usually don't do it for nothing. And I really think this has more potential than what people are thinking. I know people love the P type maps. What's up, YouTube chat? How are we doing? Um, I know what the P type maps say. I see the P type Twitter, or whether I'm checking to see how they match up. 700, I see it. I see it. Trust me. I see all the banter, the conversations about people giving their chats. Yeah, attendance has been because we have no storms. That's a good point. We haven't had a lot of storms to stream. No big time storms yet for the I-95 corridor. It's made it difficult to get some big time popping streams, but we've done okay. We've done okay. I don't mind streaming this whatsoever. I want to. Um, yeah, I mean, I was just saying P type maps. You got to remember, they're not the end all be all. That's why we pulled up 500. So we do. So right, here's our 500 setup. Remember we talked about it last night. We have our upper level low that's going to be pulling right. We have our big time trough. We have energy wrapping around the trough. We'll just see wrapping around the trough. We're going to close off at 500, open back up, kind of get separated, and then close back off again at 500. And then as we close off again at 500, we're going to stack 500. We're going to stack 500 all the way down to the surface, and we're going to really intensify this low pressure system. So I'll pull up. I don't want to pull up the P-type maps for a very specific reason. Hopefully it'll switch on me now. To zoom in a little bit. It will be windy. But, I mean, there could be some blizzard-like conditions in that band for coastal Massachusetts, depending on if there's snow or sleet, which we'll talk about as well. We can start refining on details now. But notice, right, we're wide out, 1,000 millibar system probably tomorrow into tomorrow night, and then we're going to really intensify this thing. See a low bouncing around. That's just model noise. That means we're really stretched out. Our low pressure systems really stretch out, looking for an area to consolidate, and then we do consolidate and we stack, and then notice our low pressure system really take off. GFS is super weak too, super weak with this system, and those are kind of almost rotate a little bit around each other, almost like a Fujiwara effect, a little bit kind of, but not quite. Not quite. GFS is also kind of elongated, stretched out a little bit more than most models. I think, and 12K is a good representation, I think, of low strength probably. We'll probably get down into the 980s. Watch what happens. Really tight wind field, almost like a subtropical system. A couple more core characteristics, honestly, with this system. Subtropical characteristics, but we're going to stack, and notice, right, really windy. It's going to be really windy, but that's not the point. I'll show you. There's our low pressure system. We're going to stack that right on top of each other, our upper level low, consolidate that upper level low, and then we're going to, all right, and then we're going to throw all that back, right? Throw that Atlantic moisture, right? So you're completely tilted negative. Our trough, super negative tilt with our troughs. So we're going to throw this back, almost kind of like a deformation band, and we're going to throw this band back right over, coastal Mass, eastern Mass, whatever. It will work its way back and decay probably over the eastern parts of central Mass and Connecticut before dying out. I don't want to say that's the only scenario, but um, that seems like the most likely scenario as of right now. And the thing that continues to excite me about this system is we can pull up your RGM, and also just look at NAM, look at the convection we're throwing back here at 500, right? Boom, we're throwing this back. I mean, I just the mid and upper level energy with this system is, along with a really pretty wound up surface load. I really, we take a look here, for example, the RGM. I'm just not understanding why we're not getting um, more dynamic totals on our like snow maps and the P types. When I don't understand widespread across, when we have widespread model consensus on some pretty dynamic mid levels, like if we take a look here at 700, right? RGM, right? Closing off at 500, stacks 5, 7, 850 down to the surface. And we look, we'll zoom in here. When we pull in, we zoom in. Notice this is what you see with a big time snowstorm. That's the kind of 700 look you would see. And right as this band, as we have that negative tilt, so we're going to throw it back over land, and that to me that looks like a potential significant band of snow that could be pushing it through and almost kind of stall out, not stall but slow down and regain itself. If I'm looking at this, I'm seeing right here. I'm looking at this man. Maybe that's a little too far out, but this area right here, I'm looking at for potentially moderate to heavy snow. When I see that at 700 and I see the 500 evolution look, and we're throwing Atlantic moisture back into it, the only thing, one of the main things I can think of why we're not seeing more P-type output is just a lack of consolidation and stretch out. When we look back at 500, you can kind of see, right, all this convection to the east. We're a pretty elongated system, so it struggles to consolidate and kind of gets just pushed to the north. That's why tomorrow is going to be a little coating to an inch event, probably for some people, coating half-inch event. Just sleet, freezing drizzle, snow, and kind of a messy day tomorrow across New England as well, and then probably another messy day Sunday, Sunday into Monday morning as well, which is the time frame for this. But I look at 700, and I'm struggling to see why. I'm struggling to see why we're not seeing more output. I'm struggling to see why. I think this could easily overperform based on just the expectations of what most people have. And play this back. I don't see those mid-level dynamics too often result in very light snow totals. I'm not out here saying I'm expect 8 to 12, expecting to be ready for the first snow. That's not what I'm saying. I just think there's a potential ceiling here for some folks to get 6+ inches of snow. I really do. I think some people could very well get 4 to 6 inches, 4 to 7 inches of snow out of this. Like, it will be localized. Don't get me wrong, it will be localized. So majority of the people will be like 1 to 3. And will be some little bit another more localized area with 3 to 5. But even within that, I think there could be a possibility for a little bit more. I am live right now. I don't know why anybody thinks I'm not live. Restream is the brand of the live stream I use. I'm live right now for the YouTube chat, folks. Point being, I think models are underdoing it. I think they're underdoing it just a little bit. We look at the NAM, if you look at the NAM, they're like, oh man, it's super. It went offshore, all these runs. Yeah, it did. It pushed it a little bit. But when you look at 500, it's like, I look at 500 and I just don't see why. Not just the bands not making it further into like Boston and Eastern Mass, but you look at 700 and you're like, why isn't? If I look at 700 at this point, decaying this band a little bit, right? And it's in the decay process at this point, so it kind of fades off once it gets into the central, like central Connecticut, western central Mass. At that point, west of Worcester basically is in it's a decay. But I mean, I'm looking at this, I'm just not seeing any reason why we're not thumping snow across Boston and central Mass on this dam. It's just very light snow. You can see it kind of does thump offshore. But I don't see any reason why it's just it should decay that fast. You can see it kind of comes in waves. It's just funky, a little bit weird with the thermals. I do think coastal, very far coastal, a little bit more sleet and snow potentially. So I would be prepared for that if you live, Cape Cod, South Shore, far coastal, Eastern Mass, even parts of Southeastern Mass, maybe even Boston for a time period. You could mix in some sleet along with snow. Um, and we're still, kind of a couple days out almost. We're what Sunday into Monday evening almost. So we're looking at that Sunday PM to Monday PM time frame. And this could be a long duration event too. You have to consider. So even if you only get light snow, but, if you go back to that last event we had like a week ago or a week and a half ago, whatever, I think some people pulled out like 3-4 inches of snow um, because they saw like light moderate snow like 3/10 of an inch per hour, and they saw it for like 12 hours straight, and that's how some people got like 3 inches of snow. So remember, even if there is a long period of just lighter snow, still stack up accumulations that way too. But I look at 700 and I struggle. I see how dynamic kind of the system is, and I get it. At the same time, I get it. Right, it's really stretched out at 500. It does kind of make sense why we're not seeing more consolidation. Completely does make sense because we're so stretched out at 500. Right, our volticity, our energy is so stretched out that there's nowhere for this to really wrap around the upper level low and consolidate. At the same time, you're going to tell me we're going to drop 10 to 15 millibars in pressure, stack our surface low up to 500, right? Stack our upper level low and our surface low, and we're not going to be able to get enough precip to match, our mid-level dynamics, which look really, really solid. That's a part of the, that you have to balance that. That's the forecaster, with the using past knowledge and stuff, and then balancing what the models show you. Um, Mic cutting out. My mic is a little far away. I can turn up the volume if it is a little quiet. Um, is that better? That should be a bit louder. Is that too loud? Mic good? But yeah, I don't see why. I don't see why we're not seeing just a little bit higher totals. Static. Maybe there's something in the mic. Check it out to the stream. It's fine. Doesn't seem like it's working tonight. Um, we've seen some model runs that go off a little bit. We've seen some model runs that drop like 6 to 8 inches. I've seen those the past couple of days. Got people talking about trends. There's been no trends. There's been zero trends for the past like day. I don't know. To figure out this is why you don't like run to run. Like you don't like go off and try to get all hyped up, you know, or get brought down emotionally every single run. Here we do, right? You take a time frame every 24 hours, and then right, if it's like 12Z or 0Z, and then you come back 24 hours later, what changed? What changed? That and that's part of the like what I like about only streaming once a day and not more is if I come back 12 hours later and I change my thoughts, from what I had just 12 hours ago, I mean, what consistency am I having? So try every 24 hours. We're like, okay, we're changing the models. If you know from last night when we streamed, there's not really a lot that's changing the models other than, flirting back and forth with semantics. Just not a lot has changed really for the past 24 hours. So, and people in my mentions claiming, well, within 48 hours, you have to follow, every single run and view it as a trend. It's just not true. I just completely disagree with that take. So, for me, 3 to 4 runs, that's a trend. Not 1 to 2, 3 to 4, that's a trend. 3 to 4 runs in a row of a consistent change in one direction of a model. Right? The fluctuations going back and forth. I told you it was going to happen. The models. I'm not like me. Oh, I told you so. No, I've seen it. We've seen it enough times. I've seen it enough times. Especially with this kind of setup, models just go back and forth. That's just what they do. They go back and forth. They go back and forth. Especially when we get nice and close to the event. If you just expect it to stay the same the whole time prior to the event, it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. There's going to be changes. That's the reality. So it's my job to figure out what changes, every 24 hours or something to look at. What can I brush off more? Not necessarily brush off, but how much weight am I going to hold to the changes that happen every 24 hours? Every 3 to 4 run changes in the models. And we take a look over the past day. That's just fluctuations. I mean, come on. Just fluctuation, really. Right? Maybe push a tad east, but like in the last couple of runs. But what else? The next run, it may tomorrow's runs, they may push it back all the way over here. And then you got caught and you try to give a hot take on after every model run. Right? You gave a take when it was over here, and then you gave a take when it went back over here, and then it came back and it came back. There's no point in doing that. It's zero consistency. And your people that follow you or you interact with will see that over time. That you change your mind every 6 hours. You change your mind every 6 hours. You're not really doing forecasting. You're just following the models. There's a difference between forecasting and modelology, is like I like to call it. Here, I mean, again, part of the reason why we're not seeing a widespread snowstorm too is this is so stretched out. Our trough, right? Our trough is so stretched out, so all of this convection kind of gets wasted in Nova Scotia and Eastern Canada, or Eastern Canada kind of they get the best of this because they're gonna, just right. They get the cold side of this, and then they pump in. They got a moisture feed to just pump in, and then on the other side of that, on the other side of where the front sets up, you get the full on snowstorm for hours and hours and hours. So there's gonna be some big time snowfall probably for a lot of folks. Eastern Canada tomorrow. So they're going to be able to catch right because you can see that's just constant flow of convection that gets pushed, up north instead of consolidating around the upper level low and getting a full blown on snowstorm for New England. So that would be the dream scenario. It's just not what was in store, but there's still plenty of opportunity to get a decent, minor to moderate snow with this. Still plenty of opportunity. cash in. And then, we'll see after that. We'll have more opportunities next week. We'll have a warmer adduction event next week. We can check in on. I'm not super high on it, given I do take into account what has happened this winter. I do take into account, but I try not to let it affect too much on how I forecast the next system. Because if I let my emotions take over how I'm going to forecast the next system, then I don't become as good of a forecaster. I'm the best forecaster when I take my emotion out of it and look at what's happening and use the knowledge I have to try to make the best forecast I have, not make the emotional forecast. Sean, you probably won't see a single flake of snow. Matter of fact, maybe the whole winter. Maybe the whole winter. Maybe you're just not going to get it. It's not your winter. I'm just teasing. Don't get worked up, Chad. Don't get worked up. But we'll check in on this. This is it's somewhat promising, but I wouldn't count on this. That's a little bit weaker than the Canadian is. With this kind of event, right? You have the dynamic upper level low, and this is where your cold air is locked into place. Not necessarily super cold Arctic air, but cold enough snow air, and that is where we look for potential, right? And so this Canadians really is your ideal setup if you live, not necessarily full on interior, but if you live, I-84 or 495, just northwest of 495, that's kind of your ideal setup to get some snow, just based on the current log runs. That's just based on the current and GFS is a little bit more de-amplified, based on where I would live, I would kind of want something in the middle, but it's hard to say so far out. And then this is just for fun. You can just look at this for fun, but probably going to be a lot of big time Southeast Ridge month for January. So I would count on, we're not going to be worrying about lack of moisture with a lot of these events Southeast Ridge, because what we're going to do is you can kind of see Southeast Ridge working its tail. It's a little bit of Pacific Jet working it as well from here, a little bit. But Southeast Ridge as well, you can see our 570 line up in here. And what happens is a lot of these events I tweeted about it a little bit earlier, right? You get your moisture, your warm air surge from the north, and then you get your flow. A lot of times you get cutters like this, or if you get the Southeast Ridge back off a little bit, sometimes you get lucky and you can thread the needle and you're able to make out a good snowstorm. But typically somewhere in that range is your typical storm track with the Southeast Ridge. And a lot of times you get overrunning events. So, initially you start using cold air in place. You start, depending on your blocking as well, depending on what kind of blocking you have, but you can from system to system that can suppress the ridge to an extent and allow more cold air to be locked into place. But every event is different, but a lot of times you can get cold air locked into place. Originally, get a front end thump and switch over to sleet, freezing rain, or start as freezing rain, sleet, and then you change over to rain. In the second half of the event, you see a lot of those events. Definitely not uncommon to see those kind of mixed terrain events with the Southeast Ridge. So I would expect, unless you live in the interior, I would expect some of those for the middle to over the next couple of weeks or so, I would say, and there'll probably be snow opportunities too. The sink won't be turned off, so to say, right? water's not going to shut off for snow opportunities. But we're not looking at a blockbuster pattern here to say over the next 1 to 2 weeks. There's opportunities, though. I will say models as a consensus have agreed on some sort of dynamic system in the 9 to 10 day range. The models have kind of been honing on for a couple of days. We'll see though. Model there's been a lot of like 8 to 10 day consensus, and then it completely changes. So I wouldn't. I'm not. I've bought into enough. Not necessarily bought in, but I've got too sucked in, so to say, to some of these longer medium range events that models have been suggesting, or short end of the long range. I've gotten a little bit too sucked in a couple times this winter, so you got to do your best to try not to get sucked in. But just when we're a little bit desperate for snow. It's hard. Can't not say right. We all want some snow, but sometimes you just gotta be patient. Gotta be a little bit patient. You can't guarantee everything all at once, but you just gotta be patient. Right? We still have 2.5, 3 months left. Live for to get snowstorms, so we're definitely not done yet with the winter. You could argue it's just getting started, which hasn't really gotten started, so it's gonna have to get started at some point. But you could argue that we haven't really gotten even close to the front of it yet. Maybe our time frame is right. Could be mid to late February to early March, and we get one of good snowstorms in that time. We get 2 or 3 good snowstorms in that time. Who knows? Right? It's hard to say so far out. So people that just like to say, "Oh, well, look what's happened this winter." Okay, that's great. It tells me almost nothing about what's going to happen on like February 24th or March 3rd, whatever. So you can't get too you can't do it. You can't get too addicted to what's happened in the past because that means you're getting emotional about your forecast. Remember I said, the less emotional you get about your forecast, the more you can just focus on your actual knowledge of what you know, and then create the best breakdown forecast, whatever that you can, and then you just go from there. So that's what I try to do, at least. Not always perfect. Not always perfect. Obviously, I'm going to get excited when there's big snowstorms, but try to look at every event as objectively as possible as I can. Try to look at it as objective as I can. It's hard. It's hard to, but just try to do your best. Zero Z finally came in a little bit slow under this today. RGN tonight. Yeah, I like RGM is probably one of the most further in this industry. So RGM can kind of be hard to read, hard to gauge. Sometimes it can kind of go all over the map in terms of potential outcomes depending on the setup. So we'll see. And then clearly you can see with our 564 line, we're probably gonna bring some warm air after. So whatever snow you do see is heavy, it's probably gonna melt pretty soon. But we count on it staying around for too long, right? That'll probably get some cold air, not bad. But I wouldn't count on it staying for too long. Usually we stay actually decent. It looks like we get enough cold air to wrap around after the system. Still after point remains. Right there you can see it's not going to last around for a while, right? Probably a lot of 30s and 40s next week across New England, and then 40s and 50s in the Mid Atlantic. And we'll see. We'll go from there. Probably no 60s next week. I would lean against it unless we saw what would change that is this is much more amplified. I don't agree with the Euro. I don't think it's going to be a full on cutter. I don't think it's going to be full on cutter though. So that was the Euro run. I didn't really agree with in terms of most likely outcomes. Yeah, 19. I mean, 2019, 2020 winter. We still got a. I think there was still a pretty good snowstorm in there somewhere at the end, if I remember correctly. Right? I have to go back and check, but I don't remember 2018, 2019. That was a horrible winter, and then March turned out pretty nice. I think February, March turned out pretty nice. Like a moderate February snowstorm, and then I got like a 14-inch snowstorm in March. So worked out okay. Yeah, so we have this one this weekend to watch, and tomorrow I should discuss tomorrow too. Um, I think there is a shot for something tomorrow, right? We talked about all this, right? All this energy is going to get stretched out. You can see our low pressure is really stretched out, really stretched out. So what's going to happen is all the precip is going to get stretched out as well. People are calling it a stalled front, is what they're calling it, I believe on Twitter. But when is all that moisture is going to get stalled along the boundary and get pushed up, and that's going to bring some opportunity for some precip, for some, maybe some freezing rain, sleet, snow tomorrow across. Maybe New York City can get some flakes tomorrow. Maybe I'll try to make it some flakes tomorrow. But then coating half inch probably, coating to inch max um, tomorrow, and then we'll try to break down from there. Look for it right as our start to get more cold air. We're probably almost into the 30s at this point. We're gonna get cold air to push further east, and that will allow us to be able to get some frozen precip tomorrow. So it could be a little bit messy. So for any good plans on traveling um, across New England tomorrow, be a little wary. That could be some snow, rain, slush, freezing rain, sleet, whatever, whole deal. And then Maine gets into it too, and then you can see, Nova Scotia, not Nova Scotia, but Eastern Canada in general is going to get a big time snowstorm to add on to what they already saw earlier today. Yeah, I mean, 2019, 2020 was just the polar vortex. I think we had the split, right, or whatever. We had a potential good look, and then it just didn't favor away. I mean, that might have been 2019, but actually, I think it might have been both, to be honest. Um, it's right. Well, we have all this vorticity to work with, so that's why it looks like there's going to be some opportunity um, for some maybe some surprise. But looks that's a lot. That's a lot of upper level energy to work with. In general, just a lot of energy to work with, which is I'm kind of surprised we're not seeing more on a lot of these P-type maps. To be honest, those shocks. So I think there's a potential ceiling here. Um, I'd expect 1 to 3, 3 to 6, but don't be shocked if someone so 4 or 5 pounds are able to pull out over 6 inches. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me, to be honest. I'm not guaranteeing it. Let's say, but I just be on the lookout. Just be on the lookout for this upcoming storm. Again, it's possible. It's possible. This is like just almost nothing, and then like the cake, the cake gets like 2 whatever, and they luck out, and then and there's almost nothing. That's possible too. So, but look at 700. But look at 700 here. Let's see. There's kind of mid level energy to work with, or upper level and mid level, so it's not shocking, but there's some mid level energy. Works through rate 4 or 5 time a little bit of some mid level energy work with tomorrow. Um, Light snow is definitely possible tomorrow across New England. Like code and a half inch, code an inch of sleet and snow, slush, slush across eastern Mass probably, and then I think Sunday into Monday is the real event. Again, nothing major, but I do think there's an opportunity here for some people, based on what the expectation is for most people. I do think there's some opportunity to performance, right? I mean, this mid level energy is just going to kick off, right? Our upper level low. We should change colors here. It's just going to kick off, right? We're going to stack our upper level low over our 700, 850 surface. We're going to stack that, and then we're just going to throw this band, over eastern New England, and it's going to move its way. It's going to work from east to west, and then probably almost pivot slowly, and then decay. Pivot, and decay. That's what's going to happen. And then maybe another round too. Maybe another round. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's not nothing. That's not nothing. There's still something there on Monday. So I wouldn't be. This could be like a real long duration event. Real long duration event. And I guess kind of whatever falls tomorrow, we're gonna have to add up. It's the same system. It's part of the same system. So anybody that gets snow accumulations tomorrow, I guess you can kind of add it um, as the same system technically. I'm sure National Weather Service will split it into 2 different events, but we'll get 500. It's a new system, but it's not. If that makes sense. It's a new system, but it's all part of the one system. I mean, listen. I mean, we just look at this 500. It's a pretty good looking 500. Look, negative tilt, complete negative tilt, closed off, stacked upper level low. We're just throwing off really good mid level dynamics across eastern New England. Yeah, I don't know. I look at this and you don't see a reason for why we should just be blowing this off. I don't think the P-type maps are fully capturing the full picture, which shocker. The P-type maps aren't capturing the full picture. I've never said that before. Not a chance. I've said that before. I think RGM is a little bit. I think RGM is seeing some of that mid-level energy. I think a little bit better than some calls are. You can see some of the bands here. I think it's seeing a little bit better, but it does also take our low into 970. So how much that is scope for this compensation for the low getting so strong. But hey, when you stack, your upper level low of the surface, you can really see some strong defense. So probably GFS global models probably not going to handle that kind of mesoscale feature to the best of the abilities. And so I wouldn't hold a ton of weight for the GFS the closer we get. So that's something to consider too, probably mesoscale models. going to handle this the best. Handle this the best. Handle this the best. It's gonna hang around too. So Maine's gonna get into it. I don't know if Maine's gonna sleep about that. Maybe. I mean, we can't if we do that. I am curious though. Take a look at some soundings. Any questions you guys got too? YouTube, Twitter, whatever. Or just throw them out. And, get to them. Any questions you got about this current storm or the upcoming pattern? Try to answer them the best to my ability. See, 30, yeah, 30 degrees. Why we have no lift in the DGG? It's we may not be close enough. We'll see. We'll see. No, they were a little dry in the mid levels, which again makes sense because based on what we talked about in the upper level, we're a little bit dry in the mid levels. Seriously, come on! I want some soundings here. And 3K is so blotchy. It's not even. Not even. It takes some soundings. Yeah, there's sleep. So again, this is just for some people closer to the coast, kind of across into Maine. You could have to worry about too much warm air in the mid level, so you could sleep some too. But remember, just add up those sleep and snow totals and see how much you get. Still part of the snow accumulation. So better than no sleep does count as snow accumulation. So whatever snow you get, you add on how much sleep you get as well. Just sleep doesn't accumulate that much, so usually it doesn't impact snowfall totals too much. Sometimes it's just falling sleet storms as well, though. You can get like 2 to 3 inches of sleep, which is like a ridiculous amount of precip. I gotta take offshore sound. Seriously. Yeah, mid level. Well, mid level dynamics here. Just look at QFS too, right? Look at 700. 700 looks pretty good. And that's why I'm still holding on to this for potential decency. This system. I think there's still a decent ceiling with this system, just because. I repeat myself, but it's true. You stack your low pressure systems. We talked about this before, right? You stack 500, you stack 700, 850 in the surface. When you stack those all up, that really allows your surface load to intensify, and allows you to get a really dynamic system, of which we're going to see. There's just a lot of energy, a lot of vorticity to work with here, and that's the reason why we're seeing some pretty strong mid-level dynamics. And when we see mid-level dynamics like what's being suggested, it makes me lean to question why aren't we seeing higher snowfall totals? And one of the reasons is, which is true, and I explained, this is why we're not seeing a full-on snowstorm. If we were, we'd probably get a full-on snowstorm. It's just an atmospheric river we're creating with this event, and all of our convection kind of gets shedded. Instead of pulling in our convection, we're shedding, and all of our convection gets pulled up to the north. Because really, right 500, we're super stretched out here at 500 instead of well consolidated. By the time we do consolidate, so much of our moisture got pulled in because the previous system, right, gets pulled into the tail end of the previous system and prevents it from consolidating around our upper level low, which is why we're not seeing a full-blown widespread New England snowstorm. Otherwise, we would be. That being said, such a dynamic 500 look. I mean, close off, stack, just throwing back vorticity over eastern New England. Maybe some convective feedback problems potentially in models, not pulling in enough convection potentially. I don't know. I'm surprised we're not seeing higher totals. Yeah, that's where I stand right now. I think we get a good bet. I think we get a good bet at a good. I would definitely think somewhere's going to get 1 to 3, even if it's like the outer Cape. If it does turn that way. Um, and then I think that, but if I had to lean with my gut, I'd say there's going to be an area that's going to get you know somewhat localized, but there's going to be an area that gets like 3 6 inches of snow across eastern New England, in particular eastern Mass. Um, and then I think potentially somewhere even isolated within wherever that band sets up, I think there'll be an opportunity. There could be. I'm not going to say there will be, but I think there could be an opportunity for some people to get 5 6 plus inches of snow, um, just based on the mid level dynamics and the upper level look we have at the Storm 500. I think there's an opportunity to exceed some expectations. Try to pin down. We'll try to hone in on exactly if I think that can come to fruition or not. But I don't want to guarantee anything. Hold my cards close to my chest still a little bit because I don't want to go out there and go full blown. Oh yeah, we get 6 to 10. I'm not gonna. I got no reason to. I don't got a reason to put out a bold prediction for it. I don't want to say a bold prediction, but I don't want to go out on a limb for something that may not possibly verify. We got any last questions for YouTube or Twitter? Anybody? Doesn't have to be about this system. It could be next week's system, which I can't give you a ton, but I can definitely give you thoughts. All right, going over it, but looks like a warm air adventure event next week. The warm air adventure event. GFS a little bit weaker, a little more de-amplified. Canadian diving in. Canadians pretty. If you live in New England Northeast, you kind of want it in between the GFS and the Canadian right now for next week. Euro's basically that in between. Euro's kind of that in between for. Is it? No, it's not. Oh no, that's a completely different system. Euro. Oh yeah, Euro is a cutter. That's right. Euro is way out. I'm not quite buying it. Quite buying what the Euro is selling right now. Euro is much more amplified with the system than. I don't want to say much more, but a little bit more amplified. All right, we get that cold air in place. That's the key, right? The cold air comes in, wraps behind. It's not a ton, but there is cold air that wraps in behind the system, and that kind of sets the stage for kind of a 50-50 low look. And then you're able to get a boundary set up, and you get your southeast ridge, right? You get your southeast ridge in place. I want to draw it like that. Southeast ridge in place. So we're getting good. We're going to float more moist air to meet along the boundary. All right, let's put the boundary there. All right, get the boundary, whatever. Something like that. I'm being picky. And on the other side of the boundary, this is where you get your snow. And along that, you get some pretty good lift because you're getting good warm air to meet cold air. If we had a real big time cold air mass and air mass in place, you probably get even bigger ceiling with this stuff. But you know, but still can get some snow out of this for sure. I would favor the interior, straight off the bat. But that's about as far as we can go for now. And then maybe another chance at 22nd to 24th, maybe another opportunity. We'll go from there. Go from there. Not a blockbuster pattern over the next 7 to 10 days, though. I'll say that. Not a blockbuster pattern, but definitely some chances to get some more stuff. Alrighty. Um, we'll leave it off there. Probably stream again tomorrow night as long as nothing drastic happens for the next 24 hours. But with this upcoming system, but appreciate everyone that came in. Actually, had a pretty decent stream tonight. So I appreciate everyone that came in. I will see you guys tomorrow.